Hi, I'm Jason from the Crypto Cycle channel. Thanks for joining. I'm going to go through something which you may have come across or not, but something called the Bitmap Theory. Before I get into it, I think it's probably worth me mentioning a little bit about myself. So I come from a construction background, and in terms of designing buildings, external spaces, public realms, and residential, commercial buildings, as well as from a contracting side and developing side, turning land into buildings, etc. So that is probably why this opportunity with Bitmap has really resonated with me and made me see a real synergy between the physical uh, the world space and the virtual um, computing space, shall we say. You know, this idea that's been around for the last few years, probably more in the mainstream. I'm sure you've heard of it, the metaverse. And for me, when I first came about the metaverse a few years ago, in terms of an idea and concept, even though from sci-fi movies and all sorts of documentaries in the past about metaverses and virtual reality, you name it. It's always been something that's really excited me, and I would probably say probably in the last bull run, a number of projects like Sandbox, Decentraland, just to name a few, and probably the most popular ones that came out of the last bull run. I really tried to understand the concept behind it, which I did. Um, However, there was just one thing that never grasped with me, which I will go through in this video with yourselves, and that was this idea that someone just created this world and then divided it up into districts, parcels, blocks, squares, whatever you want to call it, um, and then was essentially selling those spaces for people to ultimately do whatever they wanted to in those spaces. I imagine there was quite limitations on it. However, it just never felt organic. That I just had this idea in my head. Well, this is always going to be infinity. Um, that I can't understand the value concept. Now, there may be many other people that do, and I apologize if maybe I don't understand it how you understand it, but I'm only taking it from my perspective, like the average Joe, of trying to fundamentally go through it and break it down to or dissect it to a point that I can understand it and see how I can relate to it in a way that I can find value in it, if that makes any sense. And the wonderful thing about this opportunity is that it fundamentally comes from Bitcoin, which is an established asset, digital currency, digital gold, and it's it's something which Hitoshi Blockimoto, who came up with this Bitmap theory, uh, it really, the way he's put it has really resonated with me, and it might be probably best if I take you through it, so I can bring up their website, I can go through a few slides, and I'll show you um, why, as I go through it, why I see such huge potential in this, and fundamentally why it could really be a massive game changer for the whole metaverse space for the coming years and perhaps the next decade. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so I thought it was probably best for us to go through the Bitmap Theory 101 website. If you haven't checked it out, this is essentially where it all started from, and where I guess the message got out there, and people really read into it and then started to understand this incredible idea that Hitoshi Blockimoto came up with. Um, So look, if you've come across this already, because I appreciate there are other videos that have perhaps gone through this already in the last few weeks, but because obviously this is my first video on this, I thought I would, for all the new listeners and new watchers, if you haven't come across this yet, I thought this might be something to just sort of run past, to give you at least the background so you understand why I guess I'm fundamentally excited about this opportunity. So if we go straight into it, as you can see, it's the first opening line is it's a new standard for a Bitcoin metaverse. It takes advantage of the nature of data's unique ability to pass from multiple angles. So what resonated with me on that first line, or that second line, shall I say, in the sentence, is it takes advantage of the nature of data's unique ability. And that to me, once you start um, sort of drawing all the dots and putting them all together, you can see straight away why this all just makes absolute sense, from a understanding, there being a real sort of physical, virtual um, foundation that can open so many opportunities for the future. And I think it's also worth, as you go down the page, um, to probably, I won't absolutely repeat this. I think it's definitely worthwhile when you get a chance. Do go on this website. You can see it up here in the address bar. Um, do give it a good read yourself, but I think it's just definitely worth reading this paragraph. So, what is the Bitmap? Bitmap is an open source standard that allows anyone to ascribe ownership of a Bitcoin block by inscribing it onto a Satoshi using ordinals and the Bitmap standard. This process is equitable and decentralized, turning any Bitcoin block into a part of the metaverse at the cost of energy. Now, that that is something I can quickly just take you through, so you can understand how how it was possible to do this inscription on a block, which is essentially what that first sentence says. And perhaps it's worth me taking you through, um, exactly what is that relating to, because I think that's definitely something worth us going through. So if you haven't come across already, there is something called the Mempool. Um, so this is essentially showing you every Bitcoin block that is being minted, if that's the correct phrase to use. And on this website, um, by mempool.space, you can essentially see all the blocks that are being minted on a daily basis. Now, there are, and I won't quote the exact number, but there are more than 100 blocks. I think it's like 130, 140 blocks a day. I've got 137 for some reason in my head, a day that get minted. And uh, that is essentially almost like, showing you there's this supply and demand, natural creation, by how many blocks can be mined and minted in a day. Um, Now you might be thinking, okay, well, what does that all that mean? Doesn't make sense. Still don't get it. Okay, fair enough. Just bear with me. So, just looking at this screen right now, you can see that we've got a block here, which is the 798123. Fantastic. It's like I'm making it up. 123. But no, that's fine. So, as you can see, this was mined 10 minutes ago, right? So essentially, these blocks are mined every 10 minutes, I believe, it is. And if I click on this, what essentially this block is, there's so many transactions. So you can see on the screen, it shows there's 3,079 transactions on this particular block. And the block's been given a number, which is 798123, not to repeat myself. Now, what what this block, so you've got this block, so what? Okay, great. It's just a block. Okay. But where, I guess, Hitoshi Blokamoto got this idea was in the mempool. Um, it creates, which you probably saw right at the beginning, is this as I was sharing the screen. It it creates this image of all the transactions in the block. And if I literally hover above different little squares, you can see that each one means something different. It all has different data, different information in each of the blocks. And if you just look at this, and I'm hoping you will agree. Um, what does it look like? What does it look like? To me, I mean, some of you might say a microchip. Some of you might say some sort of motherboard. Some of you might say something totally different. But for me, being from the construction uh, world, to me, it looks like a map. It looks like streets and buildings, land, terrain, different types, you name it. That's what it looks like to me. And hopefully, you can see straight away how this is being organically produced. There's no artist that has come up with this. This is data interpreting data that creates this wonderful, beautiful image to illustrate what this particular block looks like. And that is, for me, what is absolutely, you know, fundamentally exciting, fantastic, because it creates like a foundation, an anchor for a metaverse to be constructed onto it. That is, it's just so exciting because being from the construction world, I understand you go out and buy a piece of land and you go and get permission to go and build something on it in our real world. I get it. I understand it. The synergy in this is incredible. I just, unless someone else comes up with something totally different, this to me is just incredible, and it just shows how natural that this land has been created from the Bitcoin blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, which is, nearly everyone knows what it is. My parents, grandparents, they all know what this is now. Everyone, it's an asset class that people understand. And for it to be from or based on the Bitcoin blockchain, for me, just gives it the extra, the extra credibility fundamentally to this. And this is why fundamentally I'm so excited, because it is genuinely um, the the natural terrain within the virtual space. That is for me how I can describe it and how it makes sense to me. And at the moment, like I say, I'm only thinking about it being for the metaverse. Like building worlds, and you can invite people to. You can have advertising boards up. You can have you could have a virtual cinema that people can come into, and share a space. I mean, you've probably seen the new Apple augmented reality um, virtual goggles, whatever you want to call them. You know, and if you watch their promo video, I mean, it's going to kill the cinema, 100%. I mean, one of their screenshots or parts of the video was literally someone in their living room, and they can see this gigantic screen in front of them. I mean, amazing, absolutely amazing. Um, and but at the moment, obviously, where all these companies are building these potentially these worlds. I mean, if you've ever used like the Oculus, the Meta virtual reality headset. They've got their own sort of metaverse spaces. If you ever wandered in there, you'll see that you can just see the real sort of potential. But the problem with it is that it's all hosted and created by one company, and I could be wrong in what I'm saying, but I don't believe this is the case. But I don't see how at the moment it's because it's so centralized, and essentially a silo. It doesn't cross connect with other platforms, other worlds. Maybe you've got to go and buy another headset if you want to go into another world. It's just ridiculous. Whereas this could potentially unlock this issue of being able to cross contaminate between different worlds and teleporting, whatever you want to call it. This could really be it, and unlock this idea of just being stuck in one place. You know, it's probably actually worth me showing you the Ordinals Wallet website. Um, so, and I'll go into a bit of background, like how could you inscribe these blocks, etc. Because I feel like I'm getting carried away, and I'm getting a bit emotional with how excited I am about this project. But I think probably what's worth just going back on is what you can see on the screen here. So there was something called the Blockout. Now, um, unfortunately, yeah, if you're just joining now, you've missed the Blockout. So when this was really getting the attention at the time, Ordinals Wallet made this map essentially. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. Um, and before this, essentially, was quite a sort of a blacked out screen, and you could see where people had essentially inscribed their block numbers. You would see it by what is now you see the orange squares or the orange blocks. Um, at the time, yeah, it was almost like your sport for choice. You take your time, see what number you like, see what number you fancied. Some tried to get numbers that may have had some significant relevance to some date, to some event, to some whatever. Some got earlier blocks because they seem to think those were the original sort of inscribed blocks that had hidden meaning in it, from the founder of Bitcoin, which is all cool. And there's been so many different narratives to essentially try and give a different valuation to all of these different blocks, which is cool, which is cool. Now, so what the process was at the time was you'd come on here, whatever was black was essentially what was available. You would then go onto a website called Unisat. Now, just because it was black, it didn't necessarily mean that it hadn't been inscribed and someone had essentially taken ownership of it. But what you essentially had to do was come in here, type the block number in. So let's just say it was, I don't know, 1234566, six-digit number. Then you'd put dot and then bitmap. And if it came up that it returned zero results, then happy days, you had an opportunity to grab it. So you would go to the inscribe, you would type it in exactly what you wanted, you'd connect your wallet to it, and then you would obviously pay the gas fees. You'd wait once it confirmed. You'd obviously then go back and check it, make sure you were the sole owner, and you could see your address on it, your wallet address. And then happy days, you then own the block. Fantastic. So that was essentially what the process was. Now, unfortunately, unless you're trying to get the 137, I don't know why 137 is staying in my head. Please, if you know what it is, put it in the comments. Um, so you could technically today still inscribe new blocks that have been created, as I showed you earlier. You can see it on the mempool. There are blocks always being produced. So there's another one that's going to be mined in the next 9 minutes. However, I mentioned something about the blockout. Now, the idea is that the blockout was up to a certain number, that anything that passed that certain number um, was essentially not valid anymore, because it's trying to create this sort of idea of scarcity. Um, I get it. I understand. I mean, then the next. So when blockout occurred, then there was some ideas about, right, what all the future blocks, what do they mean? Some said, oh, it could just be water. Um, I'm not sure. There's been lots of ideas. I mean, it was basically trying to stop this sort of future inscribing issues. So like right now, we're up to, I don't know what it is. So 798, 798,123. So I could potentially future inscribe 900, 2,000. So I'd essentially be trying to front run someone, inscribe it now. Um, I'd secure it and then wait for the block to be mined. And that didn't quite sit well, I don't think, with the community. I think the community's been a bit divided on it. I'm not quite sure where it's ended up, to be honest. I maybe I can try and do that on my next video. Um, but yeah, all interesting. For me, what's been most important is that I was able to achieve a handful of some bitmaps before the blockout, so I'm happy with that. I mean, they weren't the number ones or number tens or hundreds or less than 1,000 or 100,000, unfortunately. But I don't see the value necessarily in numbers. I see the value in what the blocks are, and I'll come on to something as well. So when obviously you were inscribing these blocks, it was just black, just a number. So what? So what a lot of us were doing, we would go to Bitfeed, we would type a number in, let's say. So if I just type that, um, so this bitfeed dot live, and essentially what you would see is what the block looks like. Now you just saw I had a sort of multiple different colors on that one, which is pretty cool because on Bitfeed you can view it by V bytes and fee rate, and it gives it this sort of color profile, sort of uh, sort of color distinguished to distinguish the different transactions. So essentially, yeah, this is what the block looks like, and others have come up with other narratives on trying how to value their blocks, and that's to do with bitmap punks and all this sort of thing, which it's all cool. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I done a little post on my Twitter where I actually found, actually I might even I might have it here. I'll bring it up. So I was saying, because everyone kept talking about Bitcoin punks, and I found mine. I found a few which didn't look like Bitcoin punks. Yeah, I had. If I just close that one down, I was looking at this one, going, "Look at mine. Mine looks like a Ninja Turtle or a Benjamin Grimm." So, don't know. Maybe it's just my artistic view on it, but that's what I saw. But honestly, I think any narrative could fundamentally be made on these bitmaps, and I think ultimately, I guess the community will decide what will distinguish the value. But if I just go back to the bit feed, so what I was finding quite excited about this, I mean, if I change the number perhaps, let's try that. Let's see if that works. Let's try a different one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So as you can see, that's how it comes up under value and age. But when I was filtering this by V bytes and the fee rate, I was really fascinated by the different colours. And for me, when I was looking at this, I was like, well, this could mean something. These colours, they could be like different terrains. So I early on, I posted something. Again, it didn't really get much uh, sort of noise or traction from anyone. But I really like this idea, essentially, of how the V bytes could dictate the landscape environment. Just sort of really going back to grassroots and what these terrains, if it is to be used for the metaverse, like what could they mean? What could it result in? What could it provide the narrative for the different land values, etc. And I took the key identifier from the Google design for like Google Maps, etc. And I don't know if it's sort of, I don't know if that's sort of big enough, but you can see, you've got the blues for water, green for vegetations, different shades for beaches, corridors, uh, for buildings, etc. Now, obviously, the key doesn't necessarily have all the colours, but it was almost like, well, the community, we could decide what those colours mean. I mean, I put some sort of comical examples. Like, could it be volcanoes for some of these? Emerald cities? Could it be diamonds? And because fundamentally, there could genuinely be something that these transactions, these V bytes, could there might be some sort of hidden energy in this, or really key information data that can be extracted and create some sort of use class in the future. Which there could be a hidden nugget that we don't know what it is today, but in the future it could. Very, very out there, very, very high level. I get it. It's fine. But it was just where, with all this excitement, it's just where my head was at. Um, so I think that's really, really cool. Now, one thing which I think is also probably really worth sharing is if I actually go to IMSO Chris. So IMSO Chris, if you don't follow him, that's his Twitter handle, which is at IMSO NFT underscore Chris. Fantastic bloke in the space. Hats off to him. He's a real great advocate for Bitmap. He's actually come up with the Bitmap Valley. He's really into sort of like creating games and virtual realms and worlds. And he's essentially coming up with this Bitmap Valley. This is an example of what he's working on, what it's looking like. And he actually released a 400 spaces initially to be able to get access to the tool, so to develop something like this similar on one of our bitmaps. I was fortunate enough to get one of those. I think he upped it to 500 now because it's sort of over subscribed. But I think that's it. It's sort of stopped. He is looking at releasing a phase two for people in the future. I think it'll be like $200 or $250 for the next phase. This phase for each pass, I think, was about $100. And genuinely, I think this is going to be, this is really exciting. We're only talking about this today. This and someone is able to potentially build something like this on the bitmap, and I think that is incredible. Let alone what it's going to look like in a year, let alone what it's going to look like when a lot of people are going to get their hands on this, understand it, bring their projects, bring their tools, bring their their software, whatever it is, to this, their ideas, their developer brains. What potential does this have? I think it's incredible. I think all it's going to take one day is a big institution, a big company to recognize this, advocate it, enforce it, and it's going to be incredible, and it will just take over. Now, one of the other things that I probably haven't touched on, and this is why there's still uh, a great opportunity. If you haven't been able to get in, you can get into this in the future. So right now, you can literally go onto Magic Eden or Ordinal's wallet, and you can literally buy on the sort of secondhand or secondary marketplace, shall we say. So if you go over to like Bitcoin, for example, or Magic Eden, you can go to. So I go, look at that. I mean, look at that. Last 24 hours, it is the ninth, the ninth most popular uh, ordinals or Bitcoin. What do you want to call it? NFTs, whatever you want to call it. I guess. So, I mean, if you do it over the 7 days, it's the fifth. Last 30 days. It's not quite made the last 30 days, but look at that. Last 7 days, it is the fifth most popular project on here. That's incredible. Floor price at the moment, this has gone down slightly actually. This was a little bit higher, I believe. Um, I mean, what's that? $6, something like that. That's, to me, that is extremely still quite cheap. Bearing in mind that a lot of people that when they were inscribing this, it did take a bit of work, took a bit of effort because you're in competition with other people. Especially if you came to it quite late, you're in competition with other people to inscribe it first. So some people were paying extra gas fees, etc., to try and make sure they would speed up the process, so they would guarantee the block for themselves. Now, look, this is obviously very early days. This is no financial advice. I'm not telling you to go and buy this and get it on the secondary market. I mean, like I say, some are still buying the new blocks that get mined every day. I do believe there's probably some tight competition for those. It's probably easier. I think some are saying it's easier to just buy it off the secondary market if you want to get your hands on a few. It's entirely up to you. And look, I think this is something that I'm going to try and follow really carefully. I'm hoping to dedicate this channel to bitmaps. and anything related. Ultimately, I'm just so excited about this. I hope you are too, and I hope I've explained this in such a way that you can see how you can fundamentally resonate with it as well. But probably just before I go as well, there is, if you weren't interested in essentially owning one of these blocks, the idea eventually, and it's something that's being developed and spoken about as we speak, is that, so if I was to just go back to Bitfeed, and I'll show it in the valuation so you can see the sort of the orange that everyone's looking at. So what the idea eventually is that, imagine, okay, you're a bitmap holder, so you own the entire block. Yeah, you may have an opportunity to essentially dissect your uh, block, and you could potentially rent, sell, whatever it is, each of these little parcels within a block and create communities within them. Um, some obviously have more than others, depending on how many transactions they've got. But I think that is a really, really promising and exciting opportunity, because the most important thing about this is that you need to have, you want to try and bring as many people as you can into this space, because the more people that can use it and get into it, the more innovation that is created, the more potential this can really have in the future. So I think that, like I said, we are waiting to understand how it's something that Bitoshi Blockamo is essentially trying to do. I don't know if I mentioned it, but if it's probably worth going onto Twitter, and if you yeah, his handle, Twitter handle, is at Blockamoto, Bitoshi Blockamoto. I think it's definitely worth you giving him a follow. Um, so we are just waiting to see. Oh, look, it's got here. My next tweet will be a big announcement. So that seems quite exciting. That was yesterday. Um, so that seems exciting. So we'll see exactly what that announcement's going to be, and perhaps that's what's going to make my next video. But yeah, we are waiting to see what his thoughts are on this sort of dividing up the blocks, and how that sort of, parcelizing, if that's even a word, how to parcel each one of these individual parcels on your block. How does that work? The segmentation, etc. How's that going to work? Is it a further inscription, etc. And yeah, I think that's going to be really, really cool. I'm not sure if I did show you. So when you were on here, if you wanted to see if you owned it, the block, you'd essentially put your number in. I just feel like I need to say this before I go. You would literally put you'd put your number in, and then you'd hit bitmap, and then, as you can see here, you got two inscriptions. So you had one on the 20th of June, and you had one on the 28th of June. Well, obviously the one on the 20th of June was the first to inscribe. So whoever has this address is fundamentally. Oh, actually, no. Look at that. That is a totally different number. So the inscribers here haven't. Don't know what's happened there with that. So fundamentally, there's nobody else actually that has 654,789.bitmap. So there you go. That is, whoever has that address, that is their bitmap. No one else has it. End of debate. This is, I think, what we're talking about. This is what I was talking about earlier about people front running. So, someone's gone and put this number in. It's not a recognized number today, but this is, I mean, just by chance, actually, we landed on this. So it's great to back up what I was saying earlier. So this is essentially someone trying to front run this number. It's not a block that's being mined. Who knows when that block number is going to be mined? Um, and that is what essentially we're trying to say. The community is trying to say, well, any future blocks are not valid. But yeah, we'll see how that space essentially transpires over the next few days, weeks, months, etc. Um, but I really hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm not sure if I haven't really got anything else to touch on just yet. Like I say, I'm really, really watching this space as close as possible. I'm following it. Probably what's definitely worth giving a follow is, I've got a Facebook page, um, which my myself and a colleague of mine called Federico, who's supporting me on the admin side. I'll just give him a big shout out because he's been extremely helpful and yeah, been fantastic sort of support on this. We've got a Facebook page called Bitmap. So please do give that a follow. We're up to 21 members, still early days. And yeah, we try to post all sorts of really interesting facts and what people are talking about on Twitter and on social media, etc. Anything sort of bitmap related. Sometimes we've got some really cool art pieces that people share, and we put it on here, and all these sort of really cool ideas about terrains. I mean, it's all on there. Please do go and check it out. Also, please feel free to give me a follow. Like I say, I'm Crypto Cycle. My Twitter handle is @crypto, and the O is a zero, a number zero cycle. I think someone else took Crypto Cycle with the O. Actually, I thought it looked pretty cool as well. So crypto, but with a zero cycle, Crypto Cycle. And yeah, give us a follow, and yeah, I look forward to catching up with you in the next video. Please like and subscribe. It'll really help me out. Please comment as well. Any sort of support and advice would be really appreciated to help grow the channel. So yeah, thanks very much.